right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here. It's great to see all of you. Welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. CMC connects people and ideas through community conversation just like this one. So welcome and thank you for being here. I'm Carrie Schmidt, Managing Partner of Plentiful Philanthropy. I'm also proud to serve on the CMC Board of Trustees, and I'm so happy to see you all here today. Welcome to the first ever Jane Scott Legacy and Civic Engagement Forum, celebrating community leaders. We're so pleased to kick off this amazing forum series. As many of you know, Jane was the president and CEO for CMC for 20 years, and this is a great opportunity to honor what she cared so deeply about. So thank you for being here for this. Jane, will you please stand and be recognized? Where are you? Awesome. Happy to see you. All right, we also have another congratulations in order. We'd like to recognize our very own CEO and president of CMC, Sophia Pfiffner, who just last night was named one of Central Ohio's most influential women of color by Mahogany Magazine. Here's the proof. Congratulations. All right, so we are so grateful to today's presenting sponsor, Nationwide, and thank you to today's many forum sponsors, the Columbus Landmarks Foundation, the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium, the Edwards Companies, Encova Insurance, Huntington, Smoot Construction, and the United Way of Central Ohio. We are also pleased to recognize our presenting sponsor for the live stream, the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation, and our live stream partner, the Columbus Dispatch, and the Ellis for hosting us. Thank you, everyone. All right, down to business. We have a lot to talk about today. How about this one? If the Columbus Way were a river, its source just might be the Columbus Partnership. Discuss. We will find out if that's true. So today we're thrilled to sit down with the Columbus Partnership's new CEO for an in-depth conversation on both his leadership style and his vision for the future. And to introduce our panelists, please welcome Chad Jester, our representing today's sponsor, Nationwide. All yours.
So this is an easy panel introduction today. We have two individuals as opposed to five usually, I think, Sophia. So Sophia, congratulations on the recognition. If you ask Sophia, which we all should, Sophia, what do you attribute your success to? It's probably your time spent at Nationwide when you were an employee there, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Do you want to build upon that or just that was it?
I will share sincerely, I worked underneath Chad and Nathan Weimer, and Nationwide really was an exceptional experience. I led their political programs, so no surprise, my interest in the Columbus Metropolitan Club, hosting conversations just like this are really important.
You ever want a lapel pin? We have plenty.
I mean, I'll take them. I'm here for the lapel pins. Thank
you. That was more than what I expected. Thank you for sharing. Jason, we're not turning on your microphone yet, so just give it a second. Sorry. So Sophia is here to facilitate today's conversation with Jason Hall. We all know Sophia. Jason is new to the community, so this is a great opportunity for all of us to get to know him a little bit better. I think you'll tease out some of your background, where you came from, so I won't delve into that too much, but I will share a little bit about the partnership and Nationwide and the member companies of the partnership, why we think the partnership is so important, and Jason's leadership. So Nationwide was founded here in Columbus back in 1926. We're fast approaching 100 years next year. We've always been involved in the community, just like many wonderful businesses have been here in Central Ohio for years, decades, some even longer than we have at 100 years. That doesn't happen by chance. It happens with culture, values, commitment to community, engagement. All of our employees in Central Ohio, more than 10,000, live in Central Ohio. It's about half of our workforce. The same story can be told with many, many businesses here in town. So how do we take that collective impact of the business community and focus it on positive impact? The partnership is the place where that is happening. Of course, we have the Chamber of Commerce and other great entities as well, but we really are looking to the partnership, Jason and his team, to help guide that engagement for the business community. What I've noticed about Jason so far, from my interactions with him, is he's new to town, but he's embraced Columbus. So if you are guiding the river of the Columbus Way, my friend, we're all in kayaks paddling along, right? So guide us in the right direction. But we want the business community to be engaged. It's better if we speak with one voice, right? So we can be fragmented with our different industries if we aren't speaking with one voice. And the table that Jason and his team creates for our CEOs is the place where that conversation happens. But it starts with learning. And again, going back to Jason's attributes, I've really noticed how he is in learning mode consistently. He's bringing to the table a lot of humility, being new to our community, but also tremendous skill sets that we can all lean into, embrace, and encourage him to work on our collective behalf for success of the community. So we're excited for this conversation today. Sophia and Jason, leave it to you guys. Thank you.
Wonderful. So I am so excited that you're here today. Thank you so much for joining us for a conversation. I know that many people haven't gotten to know you very well, and so we're so excited that you're here to tell your story.
Appreciate it. Well, hopefully the mic's working now. Well, thank you for having me. I was reflecting earlier. It was like a few weeks ago. I was like, what is CMC? And I'm sitting in the audience, learning and taking it all in. So it does seem a bit surreal in this moment to be here together and to have this conversation, but very much looking forward to it. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, typically at CMC, we dive into topics or issues that are of critical importance. We want to dive into what the current state of housing is, or how do we solve the housing crisis? What's the state of transportation? But today, we really wanted to spend some time diving into leadership and what makes a leader. I'm really curious to learn about your background and your history. So my first question is exactly that. You grew up across the river from St. Louis, and you were the first in your family to graduate from high school, and not long after that, you were clerking for a federal appellate judge. So what fueled that acceleration, and what moments most shaped the leader that you are now?
I appreciate it. Well, I'm going to pull a lawyer right out of the box with a pivot, which is one of the most important things in leadership style. Is it's all about people and relationships. And so before I answer that, I do want to say, a genuine thank you to all of you being here. It is special, particularly at this moment in this country, that we can come together in common purpose and invest your time to have genuine civic dialogue. It's what made the greatest country on earth, and we need to get back to those principles as we move forward. Secondly, I would not be here without the people that brought me here, and I do want to give a special shout out to the first call I ever had, which was Cindy Hilsheimer, who is an incredible gift to this community, an incredible advocate for this community, and I'm thankful for her opening up the dialogue that led to this incredible opportunity. And nationwide in Huntington, Steve Steinhauer and Kurt Walker co-chairing that search that brought me here. And finally, the best civic team in the country, many of whom are here from the Columbus Partnership. I get to work on their behalf and champion the work that they do every day. That's my leadership style. Find a lot smarter people and put them around you and make great things happen. So that's where we're going to get. But I think when sort of going back to the core of your question, I think on history, nothing defines me more than overcoming the barriers that you talked about. Sometimes people look at you in life and say, oh, well, you're now the CEO of a civic organization, a leader in the community. Those are things that would have been unthinkable to me. And I would never have crossed that high school graduation stage or got that college degree and be the first in my family to do something like that without a team around me and people that took a chance when they didn't have to. And so I always said when I was a young child, like if I ever have a chance and I'm ever in that spot, I'm not going to forget where I came from, and I'm not going to forget to pay it forward. And I think it has fundamentally shaped my view on leadership, particular leadership around an economy, which I think is the defining issue in this country right now, at the source of so many issues we need to resolve, that I would work to make sure barriers are reduced, tables are bigger, conversation is real, and we're going to bring people together in common cause and common purpose to make a more perfect country or community. And overcoming that and going through that with people 100% motivates everything that I do. And I just want to make sure that every kid, no matter what their background or what zip code they're from, has the same access to a good education and a great economic opportunity as I did, because I think it's what makes our community and country stronger.
Thank you so much. I'm curious, you mentioned that there was a team around you. And by team, I'm not necessarily thinking of a sports team, but who was part of that team? Was there an aha moment that, a father figure, a teacher, a person that was like, I see potential in you? And if so, who was that?
Yeah, I think life is a lot of those moments, and I think I would probably be doing a genuine disservice to anyone. There is one, though, like really, really early. I mean, I think I was in like the second grade or something, and it was an elementary school teacher that said, I think you need to be in this program for gifted kids. And that has always stuck with me. You don't remember all the specifics, but it's the first time where you don't think of yourself that way until somebody else sees it in you. And it's an important reminder probably to all of us. If we see something in somebody else every day, you may be changing their life with your words, positively or negatively, which is an important thing to keep in mind as well. But you have the power to do that, and especially for our kids and our youth, because it opened up for me a world I didn't even know existed.
You mentioned that this is a really pivotal time, and I think that we can all agree. Every week, regardless of the panel, there is a key theme that keeps on resurging, which is uncertainty, right? We're living in this time of deep civic challenges, polarization, disconnection. I'm curious, what does leadership mean to you right now? I think there's a lot of styles of leadership that we can see both nationally, internationally, and here locally. So what does that mean to you right now, and specifically in this moment of civic challenge and opportunity?
Yeah, look, I'm pretty simple in that regard. I think one, you approach with curiosity. There's a lot of things you don't know. Don't make assumptions. Try to seek to understand first. Genuinely bring people together. You want different perspectives around you to try to find the truth or at least the right direction on that. I think it's okay to be bold. I think it's important to be bold, and that is important as well. And I think at this moment, and we see this in the country, people are going through a lot of angst, a lot of pressure. A lot of that is economic. We used to go through these big, massive events like once every other generation. It feels like we're going through one every decade. And just the pace of change is a lot for people in the world to absorb. And for people that have faced barriers, that stress is even higher, I think. There are people that are going to step up and try to exploit that for bad reasons and for selfish gain. I think it's exactly at that time that civic-oriented leadership, people that are trying to move society, community forward, we need to step up. It is easy to find a camp. It is easy to go to extremes in any one debate because it will get covered. It plays better on social media than common sense. That's the world we live in. All the more reason that all of us that are committed to a civic society, which means give and take, which means listening, which means not getting your way 100% of the time, which means not saying something to score a point, but to try to move an idea forward. Kind of those basic principles, that is who I am. And I believe that is deeply where our country and community need to keep going.
So I'm a little biased because I think Columbus is an exceptional community. And by exceptional, I'm not saying that Columbus is perfect, right? But we have something that's really special here. Even thinking about the people who are in this room, the different sectors that are represented, we have this idea of civic collaboration. We have this organization that hosts conversations like this. And you've even said that Columbus is a model that you study that has, your quote, civic act together. So thank you, Columbus. Way to go, right?
No, I think this is weird. And, when you're going through a search process like this, people are always like, does he really mean that? Or is he just making that up? But I genuinely and honestly had studied this community intensively for the body of work that I had done in St. Louis prior to getting here. I literally had a file on Columbus with marked up documents on the history of civic leadership and what this community had done, and it truly was inspiring and deeply a national model. Nothing's perfect, and perfect isn't the standard. The question is it better than the alternative? And the answer here is undeniably yes. And think about it. It's produced extraordinary outcomes. We're the fastest growing large metro in the United States right now in the Midwest. Fastest growing. We've got the two largest historic jobs projects, whether measured by capital investment or jobs, in the history of the state of Ohio, and they're both got shovels in the ground right now. I mean, this is an extraordinary moment. If you go back and look at what civic leaders, particularly in the economy space, were working on 20 years ago, that was an unthinkable set of outcomes. Unthinkable set of outcomes. They were worried about wage stagnation, population stagnation, not enough industry diversification. Oh, we're at the kid table compared to Cincinnati and Cleveland or something. We're now the largest city in the state of Ohio. I mean, this is extraordinary what has been achieved. And I think that's a reminder, culture is our superpower. It is, yes, we've got to have initiatives and projects and programs, and all of those are very important. But to achieve the unthinkable, kind of this heartland miracle that is played out in Columbus right now, I think is deeply attributed to the culture and deeply rooted in the Columbus way. And I think it's up to all of us now, as we're in seats of influence, personal influence, of institutional influence, to carry those values forward in anything that is imperfect about them today, get up every day to make them even more perfect. And it has gotten us this far, but it is going to be up to us now to figure out where we take that from here and to live those. I will tell you, coming from a community and other cities that I have worked in, so much time and energy is expended just to get to where the Columbus way starts in every conversation I have been in this community every single day with Mayor Ginther, with other public sector leaders here. Governor DeWine literally had a handwritten note on my desk the day I walked into the job, and I was like, this is real. And what I have experienced, not even being here 100 days yet, in conversations big and small, that culturally influences. It is better than what I expected. And rarely do you get to say that about something. And I just, sometimes for those of us that have lived here a lot longer, we may look at our flaws more than our strengths. That's normal, by the way. We all do that as people. But I will tell you with fresh eyes, but somebody who had studied this pretty deeply, it is so special. And I am going to vigorously defend that as a set of civic values and culture going forward, and hopefully work with each one of you to make that even more impactful as we move forward.
I love that you shared the Columbus way, because one of the great opportunities that a lot of our members get to hear about is just different perspectives on how we feel Columbus is advancing. And I think that there are many people who love the Columbus way. I think that any opportunity where you can have multiple voices at the table is a positive one. But there are many people in our community who feel like the Columbus way isn't working for them. So to that, I'm really curious to know if there are areas of improvement, because we're not perfect. We're awesome. We're not perfect. What are the areas of opportunity that you might focus on to make sure that all voices are heard and all people have an opportunity to move forward?
Yeah, it's a great, and again, I think that gets to this, something may be good, that doesn't mean it can't be even better or more effective. And it gets back, I think, full circle to my leadership style. Start from listening. How do we keep building more inclusive tables, more inclusive approaches? I love working in coalition. It is just how my brain works. When there's a problem coming up, who do we need to call? And I will often be drawing on these conversations that we've all had, and you certainly have my commitment from the day I started and until the last day I sit in this chair, that's going to be the way I think, the way I want to act. I expect pressure and partnership. If you find an opportunity to say, hey, you missed this or you had a blind spot there, tell me. We're all people, and we can all get better, and it's going to take all of us truly to make that happen. But my style is going to be to build that bigger tent and build those powerful coalitions and draw on the full strength of our community and that civic culture that we have to be even bigger and more impactful in the future. I think this country is looking for models right now. Models of leadership. And people, I mean, coming off of the pandemic, the whole pecking order of cities is getting reestablished. People are looking for solutions. They are tired, I believe, of energy or exploitation of a stressful situation. I think as Columbus, based on where we are, the level of organization we have, and the cultural commitment to civic values, in a deeply, deeply committed group of CEOs in this community that think beyond the borders of their business, that is unbelievable at a time when so many cities are dealing with the fact that CEOs are pulling back because it's tough in the public arena right now. And that our CEOs continue to hold those values and live those values every day is unbelievably extraordinary. So let's do it. When all the noise happens, there is going to be a new normal that settles. And I think we have the opportunity to define what that means for the country, what inclusion and action looks like for the country, what an opportunity economy that's working to reduce barriers while creating more and more opportunities, what that looks like in this country. If we get that right, sky's the limit. I mean, this is the it city in the country.
There's an incredible amount of, like, the best word that I can describe is honestly fear. You know, we had a nonprofit forum here, and I feel like people were sincerely tearing up. There's a lot of concern. And my worry is that while we might have 20 leaders from the business community who see that fear, who see the opportunity, who see the uncertainty, are ready to rise to it, I'm worried about the others who are not listening or who are completely disengaged. So my question is really about storytelling. Mm-hmm. You, I believe it said STL Made, right? You know, you led this campaign for a more complete story of a city. And so I'm curious, how important is storytelling to regional identity and economic growth, how you can bring all those people together?
Yeah, it's a great question. A lot of passion on this subject. So like a lot of cities, right, we've got to define what is our brand, but what do we aspire to be? How do we communicate that? How do we bring people in that story? How do we celebrate what we are as part of that story? Those are critical questions to answer. And I think so often in the realm of civic leadership, economic development, we tell these sort of dry stories of numbers, you know, like we created 10,000 jobs or something. Very important to do, but it's not the kind of thing that really is motivational, that creates a higher purpose, I think, that brings people together. I think people relate to people, and people relate to stories, particularly stories of people that they can relate to. And I think there is a lot of room for opportunity for us to do that. I believe good civic leadership and good economic development is actually movement-oriented. I think it needs to be a cause, not just numbers on a page or statistics of where we rank. I just don't know that it is aspirational enough. I don't know that it's inspirational enough. And if I'm a 22-year-old trying to figure out where to start my life, I'm not sure that's probably going to connect with me. And so I think we need to get back into that. And I look forward to all of us working together in the days ahead to figure out what that unifying story is, how we tell not just a story of grass tops, but grassroots, and bring in the unexpected and be louder and prouder that truly represents all of us. And I look forward to that kind of work because I think we have got an amazing story to tell. I think we need to bring it to life in a much more powerful way.
That sounds very exciting. And also, because I'm sure everyone in this room are also civic nerds.
Yeah.
I've been reading a lot about social justice movements and social movements across the last 100 years. And as a millennial, it was really reassuring to see how many movements were also connected to economics, jobs, workforce development, et cetera. But through that study, what I also realized was how important representation is, and how powerful it is to have visible representation in leadership roles and in movements. So my question is, we're in this moment where identity, where visibility, where civic trust is really being tested. Histories are being erased, rights are being contested, and symbols are being really scrutinized right now. And as Missouri's first openly gay cabinet official, you've walked an incredibly tightrope on leading authentically. And so how has your identity shaped how you build trust? And especially when trust is so hard won?
Yeah, no, it is important. I mean, we're going to move at the speed of trust in this community, which means we have to have relationship, shared experiences together. All of that, those aren't just platitudes. Those really mean something to me, and it's critical. I probably had no choice but to lead authentically. I was a little bit of a late bloomer. I came out at 27 in the middle of my judicial clerkship when there was it was sort of the first battlegrounds for banning same-sex marriage at the ballot box and in constitutions across the country. So nothing like being a brand new lawyer, you're like, I'm gonna go take the world and make it a more just place. And it's like, and your rights are on trial now. And so it was actually a woman from Akron, who I'm still very dear friends with today, who signed me up as a volunteer. She's from here, married somebody from St. Louis, and they now live there. But she was the most powerful political fundraiser in the state of Missouri, and she had invited me in basically to go raise money and be the new young fresh face or whatever. As Missouri was the first state in the country to fight a same-sex marriage ban at the ballot box. So I got involved with that campaign and met a ton of people, including another woman who had just moved to St. Louis from New York, who was a big journalist, and ended up covering the story. And by long story short, I came out of the closet by way of the cover of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and that's how my parents found out. So I didn't really have much choice in the matter. It was water cooler talk at that point. I mean, literally, it's you wouldn't think of it today, but it was like the third most emailed story like for 10 days running, and I was like, wow, okay. But you live your authentic self, and I remember, and it's an important reminder for all of us in leadership, the global chairman of the law firm that I was working for, Brian Cave, sent an email out to everybody and said, we encourage our associates to get involved, and when they get involved, we want them to have leadership positions, and we applaud Jason for doing that. And I thought that made it safe, because I was like literally scared to go into work the next day, because I had worked, some more conservative-leaning people, and I'd heard comments, so pretty vulnerable at that point. And then think about my background. It was the first one that I said I was probably making more money than anyone in my family combined at that particular job, and that was powerful. From that, though, you meet a lot of people, meet a lot of friends, and the woman that was the fundraiser that volunteered for the campaign, she was also the Attorney General and Governor's national fundraiser. Through her, I built a relationship with the Attorney General, who became the last Democrat to serve as a governor of Missouri. And in his first term, on the merits, I guess he would say, installed me as his cabinet secretary for economic development. And if you remember, that was in the 2010-11 timeframe. What was the big issue in the country? We're just coming out of a global recession. The economy and that cabinet spot was in the spotlight every day. It was a bold choice for the governor. And that ripped that Band-Aid off. There had never been an openly gay cabinet official in Missouri. I will say, though, you learn a lot. I held the full rank cabinet position for 30 days. There was a senator who put a hold on my final confirmation, would not meet with me, and it was clear what was going on. And there was a lot of behind-the-scenes horse trading as those things happen. So as a consequence, in Missouri, there's a weird provision. If you're not you're holding the full rank cabinet position, but if you're not confirmed within a 30-day time frame, you're barred for life from ever holding the post. And I had also been one of the youngest people in Missouri ever to hold a cabinet spot. I was in my 30s. So anyway, long story short, that came out. It is what it is. But I said, look, the governor said, I'm going to put an acting in the cabinet. I'll put you in the number 2 spot. You're going to lead like you're in the number 1 spot, and that doesn't need a confirmation, and we're going to move on. And that's exactly what happened. And, so I know what it's like to feel discrimination in a job in a very public way. That was hard to take, but you don't stop. You learn something. You don't become negative, you move forward, and just said, I hope it's easier for the next person that comes along. Didn't stop my career, here I am, so.
And we're glad that you're here. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't have the full backstory, so thank you so much. At the CMC, we think a lot about what it means to show up as a leader, especially in public spaces with the work that we do, the conversations that we're having. Sometimes I think about my own journey. I'm the daughter of immigrants. My first job was working on Capitol Hill for a Republican. I'm really passionate about gender equity. There's layers to every single person who's in a leadership position. And I get a lot of feedback, from the pants that I choose to wear. If I wear sneakers at the CMC, it becomes a thing that people are talking, you can wear sneakers at the CMC? Yes, you can wear whatever you want. This is about conversation. Somebody made some comments about one time when I wore jeans, and I was like, seriously? You can come in your pajamas. I just want you to be here and be part of the conversation. I'm speaking about clothes, though, for a very specific reason. And I want to be really thoughtful about my question to you, because I know that at a few public events, you've worn a pen specifically representing the flag of Israel. And I think that shows a layer of leadership and identity that I would love to know a little bit more about. So can you share a little bit more about what that pen represents to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do. I wear different versions of it. I also give them away to anybody that wants them. I keep a good supply. But I think, go back to the story we were just talking about, because it'll start to make a lot more sense then. But I put the flag on right after the October invasion by Hamas into Israel. And I saw, at the time, obviously, I was leading in St. Louis, so many of our Jewish leaders, Jewish community, were under attack. There was a rise of anti-Semitism around the world. And it was interesting to me, and I thought a lot about this, because I remember what it was like as a young person, again, coming out, fighting on that campaign to just not be barred from getting married in the Constitution. I remember what it was like, and I remember the power of having allies that had no personal stake in the fight, but chose to stand up even when it was really inconvenient. And I think as we saw politically in St. Louis, there was a public official who was one of the first to sort of publicly tweet out from the river to the sea, which many people, I think, properly interpreted as a very anti-Semitic statement. And so feeling what that was like and seeing what Jewish leaders were going through, or any underrepresented population facing a threat like that, facing hate, I said, well, the one thing I can do is what people did for me, and that is I can be an ally. And I think it's important, as we all work on issues like that together, the importance of allies. So I said, as a reminder, there are people that are still being held hostage today. And I said, I will wear this flag as a visible sign of my allyship until the last hostage comes home.
Thank you. There's so many layers to you, and I really appreciate everything that you shared. I think it's really important that, especially in civic spaces, that we have these conversations where we can understand all the things that make a leader move forward, right? And in your role, you have a really critical role in the economic health and viability of this region. And part of that, as you touched on, is building coalitions. So I'd love for you to expand on, like, how have you built coalitions in the past, and what are you looking forward to? Specifically, I'm thinking, the public and private sectors. Like, how are you looking to build those coalitions, and what have you done in the past?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's a big part of just the way I think. I love when people can come together and everybody's got unique and diverse perspectives to work together to solve a problem. And I've always said, gosh, if you can just put the credit issue to the side, a lot more gets done. And I fully believe that. And I'm committed to that as a way of working. Some that I think about, you shared, personal identity around being from an immigrant family. One of the things in my prior work in St. Louis is complete opposite of Columbus. There hadn't been a population gain in the city of St. Louis in 70 years. And so we needed strategies as a civic leadership community there to grow our population. Well, one of the short-term levers you have is immigrants and refugees and becoming one of the most welcoming cities as a way to enhance your vibrancy and grow your population. It was very unexpected in our community that the CEO of the business community was probably at more press conferences, events, or church basements showing up every single time with the immigrant and refugee community. That was a very unexpected. St. Louis, like a lot of cities in our country, but particularly in the Midwest and particularly that were part of the Great Migration, had a unique and specific history around race. And for whatever reason, I had seen in my lifetime, and as somebody that was in Ferguson after Michael Brown was killed and forever shaped also how I view the world, we as a community, I had felt, had repeated time and time again issues of exclusion around civic tables, particularly around race. And again, I always say, if you're in the chair, I'm not going to repeat that. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to be perfect, but it does mean you show up with the right intention. And when I think of bodies of work, I'll give you one very specific example. In my prior work, a project we had worked on, the largest headquarters project in the history of the city of St. Louis, a federal installation, a $2 billion headquarters project. So it's a very big project. And it was going to be located in one of the most racially segregated parts of the city that in human terms represent the disparities that we often talk about in very general terms. These are real people, it's their neighborhood, and you cannot drop $2 billion into a neighborhood and expect that it's not going to change. But what you can do is build a table so that the change is not truly imposed on a community, but literally can shape what that is and learn how they can benefit. As I always said, you want to make sure that a child today is looking at that, not as yet another barrier in their life, but as a source of hope and opportunity. And that was really the goal and the intention. And for whatever reason in a region, when we would have a big convening, a day one moment, this federal installation was coming in, where do we go from here? How do we organize civically? What's the agenda looks like? And who gets to shape it? And there, for whatever reason, time and time again, we have one HBCU in the entire St. Louis metropolitan region every single time left off the table on day one. And so we're not going to do that. And we're going to build a different kind of coalition here, and particularly given the dynamics of this particular project, which was big, huge, in an emerging technology sector. And it's a reminder for me, we had the courage to have hard conversations, to have give and take. I learned a lot about language, choice, and meeting people where they're at. But when you fast forward today, what people wouldn't have expected is that HBCU, which again, almost never on the table on day one, they are the only national education provider from the HBCU community in the country in this emerging technology sector, now part of the national solution in closing the gap, particularly for Black Americans in the technology sector. And I'm so proud to see the way the university has flourished under that. And then we went further, partnering with industries that weren't even companies, that weren't even headquartered in St. Louis, to build a national HBCU exposure program so that kids from HBCUs across the country could get an early look and an early foot in the door at the opportunities we were creating in this new technology sector. And it's a powerful source today. And when I already start to see the impact of that, it was everything I would have hoped for. And we want to do that here, and we want to do that even more boldly. It's one example of many. The other one I'll mention, Build Back Better, if everybody remembers that, big national competition. Well, when St. Louis historically took these kinds of projects on, it was like a circular firing squad, the anti-Columbus way, right? Everybody put their own application in, competed with each other to the detriment of losing. So not only did we rally the region through coalition building to get one proposal, and we didn't have a senator from West Virginia, and we still won. Not only that, we had built the first inclusion-focused economic agenda that any region in the United States had coming out of the pandemic, when real money was on the line. Real money was on the line. We put a coalition together that said if our values mean anything, they must stand up when there's real dollars and real zeros in the equation. And we centered the most racially segregated part of St. Louis that had often been left behind for investment and opportunity, and said, that's going to be the center of our proposal, bringing economic hope and economic opportunity, and we won. And today there is hope literally coming out from the ground in the manufacturing sector and building a new anchor institution, not onto the community, but literally with community. And that's another one that would have been, you got to do some arm wringing behind the scenes, obviously, to get to the right outcome sometimes. But that's the way I like to think. It's the way I like to work. And because of that, Build Back Better, our HBCU, single largest competitive grant the university has ever secured, made sure the HBCU was part of that as well. And now there is a new first Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, which is real critical to creating economic opportunity to close gaps in our country. That was able to come out of the ground as well because of that. So that's the kind of power of coalition building.
All right, you know the traditions here. It's our great tradition at the CMC to have community conversation in the form of questions. So for those who are tuning in online, please feel free to type your questions into the chat. Additionally, for those in the room, if you have questions, feel free to stand up and walk towards the back. I do have one more question for you as people are getting situated. You know, Columbus is great for studies. We like to do a lot of studies and a lot of research and a lot of talking. We talk all the time here. But what we also want is action. We want results. We want things to move forward. And I'm curious, how have you helped communities, and how do you plan to help Columbus not just collaborate, not just gather around to have conversations, which are critical, but then to also take action?
Yeah, it's just, I think you lead by example on that. We only have so many days on this earth and only so many days in the seats that we have. Let's make the most of them. And I think if we remember, economic development is not about reports and studies. At the end of the day, it's about real people's lives. So literally think with urgency about the world of possibilities that we can usher in, and remember why we're doing the work. Remember the purpose. It's not to talk in technical jargon terms. It's to change real people's lives. And I think when you do that, you lead with action, you lead with results. You got to be thoughtful, and sometimes you do have to go slow to go fast. But I'm way too high energy to sit around and do studies. We can do that at other times, but I think you learn by doing. And I think we do need to create a risk-taking civic culture where we give ourselves the grace and we give ourselves the opportunity to make mistakes. That's okay. We don't have to be perfect. We will learn something from that, and then we can go further, faster, and with more impact. So there's too much on the line. The opportunity we have in this city and in this metropolitan region to define the next city. This moment, people sacrificed for decades to give us. It is a set of outcomes that would have been unthinkable and unimaginable. As I would like to say, the dog caught the car. what are we going to do with it? And how are we going to show an economy that truly works for all, that solves real problems, and makes this city, which I think we're already a superstar city, a superstar region, how do we just really take it to that next level? And we are the city and metro in this country that everybody else is chasing and everybody else is continuing to point to as the model of what winning and how we define success and who's included in that success defines the next era of American society that we're entering into in the post-pandemic world.
Thank you. Doug, feel free to kick us off.
Sophia, thank you very much. Jason, thank you so much for joining us today. If you have questions for today's panelists, please do join us here at the microphone. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can. Great questions at CMC have two things in common. They take just a few seconds to ask. And what punctuation mark does a question end with? It ends with a question mark. Thank you so much from our repeat guests. I'll launch us off with this one. Carol Mary asks, Jason, would you talk about the top 2 or 3 priorities you're working on and what you think they might accomplish for Columbus and maybe why you're excited about them?
Yeah, multiple tracks. One, give me a little grace. I'm still not even to day 100 yet, so a lot of learning, and so many of you have been generous on that. That is a priority. You only get good at this role and even more effective the deeper you go, the more nuance you understand, and the most perspectives that you can bring to the table. Secondly, we got a lot of things running down the pike. Week 1 was announcing Andrel. Week 2, a national football championship. Week 3, we're announcing our commitment and investments in the Columbus Promise to reduce barriers. It's just been nonstop. But I will say, trying to put together in my own mind while learning the framing of the right question that we need to answer in this community, and then figuring out how, where we are, we need to organize to make that happen. Historic levels of investments on the economy, historic levels of investments in reducing barriers. Things like Link Us, we're building a new airport, we're making big investments in the Columbus Promise. That is a lot at once, and trying to figure out how we do that in the most impactful way in partnership and with partners has been at the top of my list because we don't have a day to waste.
Hi, Jason. Thank you for being with us today. I'm Karen Huff Majidzadeh, and I'm the founder and CEO of Improv Edge and the vice chair of the Columbus Association for the Performing Arts. So I've been hearing a lot and talking and listening to a lot of economists, tariff and tax specialists, et cetera. And one of the main things, one of the best pieces of advice I feel that they come out with is scenario planning. Really encouraging every business, large and small, to scenario plan, which could be a very difficult situation and also maybe something great, like what happens if you get a client that's twice as big as anything you've ever seen before, right? That's what we all hope. But I was thinking a lot about Sophia's comment on fear, and I wonder if you and the partnership are doing any scenario planning and what that looks like. Thank you.
Yeah, no, lots of scenarios going on, and it seems like it may be different by the end of lunch at this point. But yeah, I think it's safe to say on many fronts, this is like in businesses, you got tariffs on one day, tariffs off by the end of the day. There's a lot of uncertainty and volatility. So obviously, scenario planning for that every day. Secondly, like not lost on me, we've got, I would say particularly for our nonprofit and health and human services sector in this community right now, you've got this confluence of unhelpful forces with ARPA dollars and other one-time sources rolling off at a time when we have a particularly high need in our community. And it is a lot right now. Trying to figure out what avenues we can all open up together, what innovation do we need to bring to the market, and some of that is literally talking directly with relevant stakeholders on that. It will be, all of those will be things that will test us as a community, will test the Columbus way as our set of values, but it is critical that we come together around those to find real solutions that are going to be really, really tough to figure out. So That's just to scratch the surface of a number of scenarios that we're all trying to think through right now. I do know this, growth generates more resources, and that is something we've got to continue to stay focused on because we need more corporate citizenship right now. We need more investment in our community right now, and ultimately more jobs, which really get to they're the best social program we have. So we need to open those up as long as they're accessible to everyone.
Yes, welcome, Jason, to Columbus. We are so delighted to have you here, and even more so after this conversation. I'm Margie Pizzuti, and I'm the retired CEO of Goodwill Columbus. And I focused on, thank you for mentioning the health and human services sector, because that was what my question was about. We are very delighted to have and fortunate to have the Human Service Chamber of Franklin County in our community, a national model. I am humbly and proudly one of the founders back in 2010. We've grown from 15, 20 members to 250, large and small. And as you suggest, we have an opportunity, and you do too, because you've got an organization that speaks with one voice on behalf of this sector, because we want to have a seat at the table, and we've gotten really good at doing that. So tell me what your thoughts are, if it adds upon what you just said, about how you may want to engage with this force in the community through the work of the Human Service Chamber.
That's great, and really the work's underway. I'm deeply appreciative. Within my very first couple of weeks, Kurt Walker and Chad Jester convened some key stakeholders in that sector, big enough to give me some broad perspective, small enough that I could actually learn from and engage on so that I could start to get a handle on the issue. In my experience and prior work, look, nonprofits are businesses too. Your tax status doesn't change the fact that you're an employer, you're in a business, critical to the success of our community, and our values are defined by how we take care of our most vulnerable during their most vulnerable. So it is going to be one. I will not pretend to know the answers, and I will not give you that. I think it is going to take all of us working together to say, how are we probably going to have to innovate at a time when resources are there? We've got some key members of our team working on community information exchange, which could bring technology solutions to help innovate in the area of delivery and impact in cost-effective ways. All options are going to have to be on the table, but from my point of view, you're important businesses in this community. We've got to have a relationship. We got to know each other. And most importantly, we're going to have to find common ground and common sense. Again, we are blessed, I will say this though, to be in a community, even under those circumstances, with the level of generosity that we have. I mean, what Nationwide does in this community, I always knew Nationwide is like one of the great American brands, and everybody knows Nationwide is on your side, and it was one of the first things I looked at when I was looking at Columbus. And as I learned more about how much that company does here under Chad's leadership and others, with an incredible amount of humility, it's unbelievable, inspiring, and I think the more we hold that up and ask others to come into this and be a part of civic-minded leadership to invest back is also part of the answer, is bringing more people under the tent that follow the leadership of some of our great corporations here.
Thank you, Jason. We have about 2 minutes left for a final quick question.
Thank you for your program today. 57 years ago, when I was being interviewed to come to Columbus, the longest interview that I had dealt with why Columbus was going to become the largest and leading city in the state of Ohio. Where do you see it going based on the interviews you've had and what you've learned over the next 50 years?
Again, I think we have all of the ingredients building off prior success. We are at an historic inflection moment, and I deeply believe that right now. We're expected to add 1 million more people in our region in the next, the estimates range a bit, but let's say 15 years being kind of maybe the median. The largest job and largest capital investment project in the history of the state, both with shovels in the ground at the same time. Massive barrier-reducing investments in public transportation, housing. Mayor Ginther just announced $500 million in affordable housing, the largest public sector commitment to that challenge in the history of our city. That, if we can bring and harness that together to create an economy rooted in opportunity in the civic values that have got us to this point, we are going to be the city in this country that everyone's talking about and everyone is looking at as the positive pathway forward. It's not about competing with Cleveland and Cincinnati. I love those cities. I've got dear friends that lead in those cities. If we view that as the competition anymore, we are thinking way, way too small. What's London doing? What's Paris doing? What's Tokyo doing? That's the way we need to start thinking about ourselves here, because that is the opportunity before us. I would worry about missing this opportunity if we're not bold enough, make the changes we need, recognize what got us from A to B is probably not going to be the same exactly that gets us from B to C. There's going to be a lot of changes that are necessary, and that's good. But I mean, think about the position we're in. And I shared with our CEOs, just to underscore, when I was kind of coming up of age, and graduating from law school and everything, San Francisco was the city. It was the rock star city. Everybody's like, well, I'm going there, following opportunity. Like last month, they had to create the Partnership for San Francisco because they are so knee-deep in challenges right now. They're trying to figure out where they're at. I'm like, how beautiful to be in Columbus, where we're 25 years down that line. We're not missing a beat. We're only getting bigger. We're only getting bolder. We're only putting up more wins. We're only showing more courage. And they're back to where we were 25 years ago with a vacant downtown, how many tens of millions of vacant square feet, crime challenges, and literally looks like a Midwest city in the post-World War II era where people are fleeing the city. It is literally depopulating. If that doesn't capture the moment Columbus is in, and I think we all have to remember, suspend belief, because we think, well, those are the winners. They're always going to be the winners. No, that has changed. We're the winner now. And we've got the opportunity to take that even further. And that is why I took this role. That is why I came to Columbus. I came seeking opportunity. I think it's real, and that's where we're going to go. And if we get that right, we're going to get there.
All right, Jason, thank you so much. This was an absolutely wonderful conversation. I believe that Carrie's going to take us home, but let's give Jason one more round of applause.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here today, and for everyone on live stream, thank you for joining us. Thank you to the Jane Scott Legacy and Civic Engagement Fund. What a start for that. And our presenting sponsor, Nationwide, through our other sponsors as well, Columbus Landmarks Foundation, the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium, Edwards Companies, Encova Insurance, Huntington, Smoot Construction, the United Way of Central Ohio. We are also grateful to our presenting sponsor of our live stream, the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation, the Columbus Dispatch, our live stream partner, and the Ellis for hosting us. A very special appreciation to our panelists today. Thank you so much. All right, we'll be here again next Wednesday. Please come back. Next week, we are discussing the bioscience breakthroughs that are saving lives in Central Ohio. It's part of the COSI Science Festival. Thank you.